What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Learning Quick. I see we have lots of friends in the chat already, which is really exciting. So welcome, everyone. Appreciate you coming back and hanging out. I tweeted about this a second ago, but I was kind of wondering like what things people are a little self-conscious about, feeling like they should know better. And testing/unit testing has always been one of those things for me. I've done a little bit of testing. I don't know it that well. So I'm excited to have a guest on, Alba Silvente. We practiced Fuentes, practiced that a little bit beforehand. But anyway, Alba, welcome. And if you want to take a second to introduce yourself, I think they'd love to get to know you a little bit.
Okay. Hi, everyone, and thank you, James, for inviting me. Well, I'm Alba Silvente. I'm from Spain, but at the moment I'm living in Amsterdam in the Netherlands. I'm a front-end developer, but I started 5 years ago developing as a full stack developer. So I learned a little bit from PHP, jQuery, and also HTML and SAS, but then I migrate with all the stuff that was coming with the new frameworks as Angular and Vue. And now I'm working so focused on Vue and also in my personal projects with Next and Storyblok. I have a CMS I use for my personal website. And the past year, I started writing content about the stack I use in a daily basis in my blog, downtrowers.com. Sorry for that. And
No, you should. But by the way, feel free to plug whatever you want to. I'm going to grab a link to your site and I'll throw it in the chat.
Nice. And the past year, I learned a lot while writing content, and I started working on a huge company that we start using unit testing for the projects we are, because obviously in a huge company, you will start making things that in your personal projects or in the small projects you can't. So it's quite nice. And now I'm working mainly with Vue CLI, and also with Jest in the whole project, and also with accessibility with JustX, that is a plugin that you can use for accessibility. That is so cool. And I'm learning a lot here about unit testing, but also functional testing and other stuff. But my main goal is to focus always in the DOM elements and start writing content about how to test that kind of stuff. So that's me. And
Awesome. I've got actually so many follow-up questions for that. First, we should do a shout out for Tech Gadget, who just did a subscription for 4 months on Twitch, which is a big deal to the channel. So Tech Gadget, who is part of the Learn, Build, Teach Discord, and a mod actually inside of here. Thanks for the subscribe. I'm going to put a link into the chat for the Learn, Build, Teach Discord in case anybody else is interested. And then Alba, I think we'll have to get you involved in there, or at least joined, and check it out after the stream as well.
Okay.
So one question for people in the chat. People in chat, are you doing any automated testing? What are your testing libraries, frameworks of choice? Let us know in the chat. And in the meantime, this is going to be kind of an interesting question, not necessarily related to testing yet. I'll get into lots of questions about that. But you mentioned Vue and Next and really just being in the Vue ecosystem. Why Vue versus any of the other options? What do you love so much about Vue?
Well, I start with React, the library, and then I migrate to Angular because there was more jobs in my city, so it was easy to get a job in this framework. And when I started working with Angular, I started learning about Vue with Vue Big Sense. So
that's
I was
Diana or Diane?
Jan Looper.
Okay.
Jan Looper is the Frontend Foxes organization that also has Vue Big Sense. So I started learning Vue with that courses, and I see that for me, it was easy to understand how to manage the state than in the other frameworks. And also when I was working with Angular, I have 4 files for a single component. And for me, it was a huge structure. I need to be more, it could be done in a single file, I thought. So when I see Angular, I thought that it was for bigger companies, but Vue was for everything that you can imagine, and it's so simple to start with it, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I did Angular work. I think one Syrian, which is Lawrence, may still be in here. He still works at FedEx. Was one of my coworkers when I was there. We did some Angular together. He's probably still doing some Angular, and that was kind of my first intro into modern JavaScript framework. So I did a lot of Angular, and then eventually was like, hey, people are talking about React enough that I should probably try it out. So I've been doing mostly React on my end. Vue is still on my backlog of things that I like need to spend some time with. And you've got some people in the chat, especially Tech Gadget, is a huge Vue fan, and he thinks that he's going to turn this into a Vue conversation completely. And he says that he's a big fan of yours because you're a fan of Vue, which is good.
That's nice.
A couple of people, Tech Girl Angie, what's up, Angie? Thanks for coming by. Mentioned the stack of Selenium WebDriver, Cypress for JS apps, and then JUnit. JUnit being is JUnit only for Java testing? I don't know
it's
if
like NUnit for .NET because I work in a company with .NET.
So NUnit for
NUnit.
.NET, JUnit for Java. There you go. Cool. Got it.
Yeah.
See, this is a cool thing for me is I get to learn so much by being here and talking to other people and then having people participate in the chat
cool,
too.
cool.
Yeah. Kelsey Hugs says that they need to get on the Vue.js learning too. So I think maybe you've got some people that you could bring over to the Vue side of the framework. Well, cool. I guess one of the things to start with is it's just why testing. I feel like it's one of those things. It doesn't often get taught a lot, especially when you're learning. If you go through a boot camp, like I am teaching a boot camp, and there is a tiny bit of testing, but it's not a focus. It's not one of those things that I think is really, really repeated enough for it to sink in and for people to understand the benefits. So from your perspective, like what's the benefit of testing? Why do you write tests yourself?
Well, when I start developing, obviously I don't have the brain prepared for this. I need to first understand what I'm doing and also the good practices of writing JavaScript to then start thinking of unit testing. But obviously I start thinking of unit testing when I come to a company that they really have a huge project in his hands, and you need to make unit testing to don't break the code while you are working with a lot of teams.
Yep.
So the main goal of a company is to have the confidence on their code that everyone could work on it in the future and also knows what you are writing. Because obviously the documentation can help you, but you don't have the security that gives you a unit test. But for my personal projects, I start using it also because sometimes I see a lot of issues when I didn't have unit testing. For example, you start creating a component and you didn't check that the block is there because you know that it will be there because you are writing your own content. So you know that it will never be empty. But sometimes you could delete it or change it to another platform and you don't remind that you don't have a condition there. So for that, I start writing just to be confident on what I'm doing and also to start making the things work as it should be, because you will learn a lot of good practices while testing. Yeah. You will see that your code is not well structured, and for JavaScript, you can make a mess if you have unit testing. Yeah.
I love that you brought up the idea of changing the way that you write your code by thinking about testing it. And that gets into because I think the idea, especially with unit tests, is you want to test one specific thing. So if you have the idea of functional programming really becomes pretty key here, where it's like, all right, you have a function, more or less, it should kind of have everything that it needs to work with inside of it, either probably passed as a parameter and not really affecting outside things. So you get like pure functions, which then makes them really easy to test because you can pass whatever it needs into that function. And then every time you do that with the same parameters, it should come back with the same result. And I've definitely caught myself. And so like I do lots of smaller side projects and I don't write bigger projects anymore because I don't do like software development every day. I do a lot of this type stuff and I do other activities. So I kind of miss out on some of that stuff, and I can catch myself sometimes writing code and then taking a step back and be like, you should probably do that a little bit better and organize a little bit. And I think having tests definitely forces you to think about that, which is really like good to catch the bugs, but then also gives you a structure to your code, I think.
Yeah, because when you are testing, for example, if you have a class with 2,000 lines, obviously when you are unit testing this class, you will see that this is not anymore a unit testing, and for that you need to structure the class in another way, and that helps you also because your project will be more manageable and you can reuse things that you will never think that you can reuse.
Yep. Yeah, this is, I feel like the idea of testing is, I think a lot of concepts from my perspective as like a teacher in the boot camp that I'm in and the content that I've created, a lot of things are just really hard to understand when you're working on them in small projects. Like if you're just doing a really small thing yourself, it's really hard to understand the benefit of unit testing and a lot of other things. But once you get into like a real world project, a bigger project with like 5-10 developers contributing to the same thing, then you really want to have some structure and some ability to know that it's actually going to work. So one of those things that I was kind of curious, maybe you could talk about, is how and when do you run your tests? Like as a developer, if you're working on one of your projects, do you write some code, run the test yourself, and then check it in? Or do you also have, if you try to do a PR or merge request or something, does it also automatically run those tests to make sure that it passes those before it can even be potentially merged? Is that how you factor that stuff in with the stuff that you do?
Well, it's both because, for example, when you are changing your function, you know that the unit test will fail if you are testing that function, the implementation of that function. So I used to run the command locally, but also I have pre-commits hooks that can run the command for me to push everything when it's ready. And also we have obviously a pipeline and we run the code when we push to the branch. So yeah, I think all the ecosystems will be testing just in case you forget locally. Yeah. The pre-commit hook will remind you, and then the pipeline. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I actually I watched the video. I don't know if Colby Fayok is in the chat, but Colby Fayok, if you've never met or seen him, has some amazing content. So you can find him on Twitter and on YouTube. His YouTube stuff has been really good recently, and he did a video on pre-commit hooks. I have never actually worked with pre-commit hooks. But the idea of being able to do like linting and prettier and testing and stuff in your pre-commit hooks makes a ton of sense. That way you're kind of guaranteeing one, that the tests pass, and then you're also just kind of guaranteeing your format. Just with so many different people writing code, making sure that all code really abides by those rules of linting, prettier, and then passing tests. I do want to give a shout out. Brad Garrity, another one of the moderators in the Learn Build Teach Discord, is hanging out in the chat. He created his own Hue SDK. So if people have noticed the lights changing back here, and I use Brad's code, his Hue SDK, he's got a link in the chat there, to be able to give a little bit of abstraction, because working with them directly, you basically send like raw HTTP requests, and it doesn't really have like a nice library, which he created. And he's been working on that a lot, and he added testing. And Brad is one of those people that when I see the stuff he does, he adds a lot of best practices that I really haven't added in some of the smaller side projects that I've done. So things like migrating to TypeScript to make it easier from a usage perspective, adding testing and that sort of stuff. So anyway, he's done a really good job with that. And he had a question for you. In your pipeline, do you run the pipeline? Do you run specifically the testing only on the master or main branch, or do you also do it on other branches as well? Is it all branches?
I do it in the push for master and develop, or main now in GitHub, and then also for the pull requests.
Okay.
Make from any branch to develop, because obviously, yeah.
Cool. So
the pull request is more, a way of working than only pushing, obviously.
Yeah. So you sounds like you probably follow the structure of people can work on like a feature branch or a bug fix branch. They'll work on that, then merge that into development. That will be kind of like the ongoing project, and then at some point you'll say, hey, take a snapshot. We're ready to merge that into the main branch.
Yeah. And cool. I also add always a plugin we'll have with GitHub Actions that make a screenshot of the coverage of your code. And that's so cool because you can also not only run the tests and that they are working, to have also the percentage that you want, maybe more than 80% or less, whatever you want. You can
10%, 20%, whatever.
10%.
Probably a little too low. By the way, Colby Fayak just joined in the chat. I wonder if Colby was hanging out already or if someone told him on Twitter that we were shouting him out. But Colby, I was talking about your video that you did on pre-commit hooks, and Angie was nice enough to link to your Twitter profile in there. So welcome Colby. Brad was saying just kind of a comment there on he doesn't typically run tests on push to develop branches. I would have thought running on all of them, unless I guess the only downside, and maybe you can give me a little perspective. I guess the potential downside is if it takes several minutes to run the test, then maybe you wouldn't want to run them all the time. But I guess maybe in general, how long do like the suite of tests that you have, how long does that take to run? Probably a minute or a couple minutes?
It depends, because when you are testing locally and you run the command, obviously it takes like 5 seconds more or less, or more if you have more tests. But when you are running the pipeline, you are also mounting Linux, Ubuntu, so the process is quite long. So yeah, for that I only make for master and develop, because for me master is the main goal. So develop is everything I'm working on. So I work more on develop than in master. The master is just to check that when it's merged, everything works fine as in develop.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that makes sense. And Brad brings up an interesting point about where it may depend on where you're doing your build. So if you're hosting in Netlify, you only have, in the free tier, you only have so many build minutes per month. So if you're potentially like eating up your minutes, then you might not run your test all the time. But I think this is what you said you're doing. You're doing yours in GitHub Actions, which means that I don't think you're limited by those number of build minutes. So you can go and test everything you want.
Yeah, I made it with the workflow that GitHub allows you.
Yeah.
Because, for example, in Bitbucket, it's also paid, I think, the pipelines.
Oh, it is? Okay.
So
yeah,
you have to take care
so
if you want to pay or not.
Yeah, you'd be really cautious. That's so interesting. A little side note, just the Microsoft acquisition of GitHub, I feel like probably has gone better than anyone ever expected. Like from a developer's perspective, I think people have been really excited about the stuff that Microsoft in collaboration with GitHub have done. Like something like that being free, now private repositories being free, which wasn't free for a long time. So a little shout out to Microsoft, kind of changing the game from the developers' perspective and their relationship with developers.
So true.
Brad is shouting out TypeScript, VS Code, GitHub, all the stuff they're doing. I worked for Microsoft. I don't know if you knew this, and they were doing a lot of cool stuff while I was there, but now they've just continued to really take it to the next level. So I'm always a big fan of what they're doing. Let's see. We've got a question from Willpar Codes. For people in the chat, if you haven't checked out Willpar on YouTube, you should. Willpar, if you have a link to your YouTube channel, feel free to throw that in the chat, because I'm a fan. But he's asking, what happens when multiple people are committing to the dev branch? At what point does dev QA test?
It should be compulsory to make a pull request to dev, at least in the project I'm working on. Because dev is the master, but before publishing. So
gotcha.
we always you can without permissions, rights, to push something to develop. Yeah. Gotcha.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So so you require it to be a PR to get in develop. That way you have good control over develop branch. And that means that you're like that develop branch, anything that gets into it should be in a good state. It will have the tests that run on any PR to make sure it still looks good. And then that stuff will be pretty stable, and you can move that to your master main branch whenever you're ready. It's one of those things that, like, after years of having certain things, now you have to kind of adapt to the terminology. Pavi, who is in the chat, is asking, private repos are free. I don't think he knew that. So yes, private repos in GitHub now are free. And I think everyone's kind of commenting on how Microsoft has just really done a great job and kind of transitioned themselves into being much more engaged and understanding, I think, in the developer community. Because I think originally, or like 10 years ago, I don't think developers really liked Microsoft, right? And so they've totally changed it around. Angie says total 180, yeah. And it is really cool to see people's response to the stuff that they've done, and it seems like genuine understanding and caring, I guess, for the developer community. Some of the stuff that they brought. Let's Lawrence is saying shout out to Satya, the SEO. Not SEO, wow. SEO is a totally different conversation, the CEO at Microsoft. Do you have any specific stories maybe that you can share of like where you didn't have testing and something went wrong, or you did have testing and you caught something that would have been really bad? Like if you hadn't caught it, it may have had a pretty negative impact on production application.
Yeah, well, when I was working with Axios, when I started working with the API calls and that kind of stuff, I have a lot of issues with the catch errors and when I have to wait a response and that kind of stuff. And I really don't understand what I was doing. But when I start unit testing that services, I start thinking in another way and how to structure my API. So I always separate the calls, the endpoints from the main structure instead of redoing the job, because it was easy to test. So sometimes testing is helping you to understand better what you're doing. But for another things, for example, an storing view with Vuex, I have a lot of problems to test that and understand why I need to test this with Jest, because it was a mess and I have to create a mock of the store and then test the real store, but then use this mock in the test. It was a completely mess, but I understand why I'm doing that, because I'm testing a unit. So the store is not my unit, so I need to mock it. But to mock that, you spend days understanding it. But after that, you have the structure for every store you will make in your life. So I just write it down, documentation, to keep it there and remember.
And then you have it to reference later on. That's great. By the way, Kevin Powell, YouTuber friend of mine, just rated with a party of 36. Kevin, welcome. And thank you to everyone who came over in the raid as well. So he brought over a party of 36 people. Welcome, everyone. If you're, well, I guess you would be checking in for the first time today, at least. But if you're new to my channel, I'm James Quick. I do web development tutorials on YouTube, and then one or two streams every week on Twitch as well. And today I've got Alba on as my guest, and we are talking about automated testing, and specifically with Jest. And my dog is barking for some reason. I don't know why. But anyway, welcome. And if you have any questions or anything you'd like to hear, well, I guess really Alba talk about, because she's the person to answer those questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. And we do have one question, actually two questions, sorry. First one from Angie. Is Jest for unit tests, API, web testing, which maybe web testing is like UI testing, or all of the above? So what are the different use cases that you can use Jest for in your automated testing?
When I'm using Jest, I'm only using Jest for accessibility, using more plugins than only the Jest Axe. Also for functional testing, we are using Test Cafe. So I'm using only Jest for unit testing. But I think it's only for unit testing. And I'm using Test Cafe for functional testing in my job, but I'm start doing Cypress because everyone recommends me to start using Cypress in my personal projects. But this is for end-to-end. So, but I have a little confusion about functional testing end-to-end, because in application like a Vue, I think it's the same. Because integration for backend, I have clear that is integrate components. But when you are functional testing something, you are testing the page, and the page has a lot of integration, not only with components, also with the store and that kind of stuff, and with the API, and the calls are make it. So functional testing is end-to-end, basically, and we are making it with Descafe in my company.
Okay, sweet. Kind of similar to that, I heard Scott Talinsky, who runs Level Up Tutorials. I think he was talking about on a podcast recently that he ripped out all of his unit tests, or was ripping out all of his unit tests, and he was just doing end-to-end tests. I think with Cypress, and I've heard some other people kind of question the concept. Yeah, Brad is confirming he dropped Jest entirely just for Cypress, which is pretty interesting. And I've heard some other people kind of debate like, well, if you have good end-to-end tests, doesn't that cover you from unit tests? Like if your end-to-end tests work, then your unit tests probably work. And I think part of the different perspective is there's some diagram of a pyramid where like unit tests are easy and fast to run. So integration tests take more resources and more time potentially. So if you have a good set of unit tests, you can catch errors faster, quicker than you would if you waited until like the full end-to-end test. Yeah, you said it. Tech girl Angie mentioned the test pyramid as well.
But also have sense because when you start creating an application from zero, you need first to make the test because test-driven development says that you need to do the test before the actual code.
Sure.
So if you make end-to-end tests without code,
that's going to be a hard test to do.
Yeah, but obviously if you have your application in view already done and you start unit testing, doesn't have any sense because you already did it. So it's better to have end-to-end and that's it.
I think we've got some comments in here about that. Brad said that Jess got a little tricky when it came to TypeScript and the build tool chain. Do people do? I feel like I don't hear about TypeScript and Vue very often. Do you by chance use TypeScript with Vue or just regular JavaScript?
Well, the new version, the Vue 3, is using TypeScript under the hood, and also the people is migrating to TypeScript. I didn't do it yet.
Okay, one day.
But
maybe.
I start with Angular in the past, so I think it will be easy. But I need to start with it because at the moment, yeah. And Next is not ready yet for Vue 3. So I want to wait just to everything in the ecosystem is complete because otherwise there is no content there.
Yep.
People is making articles without the real thing finished. So I prefer to wait.
Fair enough. Yeah. So, and Tech Gadget is asking if you mentioned Nuxt. Yes, she did. And so Nuxt, I don't know. Is it Nuxt 3? Like, will it be called Nuxt 3? I'm not actually sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
It will be called.
So that is in works now, and then it will be kind of brought up to go along with Vue 3. Cool. Yeah. There's so do you know Debbie who works at Nuxt? I'm sure you do. I've gotten to chat with her a few times over the last year. Really enjoyed working with her, and she's done such a great job with the Nuxt community. So if you are interested in Vue and Nuxt and haven't followed Debbie O'Brien, you should go and follow her as well. Let's see. Rootshield is commenting, I think unit tests still have a place. Really depends on the logic you are making. If your business logic is very complex, internally, unit tests are more important to trace issues. Yeah, I think if you got multiple steps along the way and you organize your code really well where those individual functions maybe are pure functions, maybe not, but helpful for them to be pure functions, makes them like gives you a way to organize your code well and then test them like really quickly. Angie's saying those are cheaper, they're faster to write and to execute. Absolutely. And it pinpoints exact error on a failure. So you end up reducing some of your debugging time. Yeah, all really good points. And these are things that conversationally I can talk about, but testing is by no means a big part of my background. So I'm glad that at least the things that I have in mind seem to match up with what you and everybody else are saying. There was maybe a question. I thought I had another one. Maybe I'm missing. Will Parr now has a question. For mocking complex entities, do you have a library helper thing, or do you create it test by test?
Well, at the moment, I'm creating all the tests. Obviously, when I'm working in a view application, it's slightly different, as I told James before, because we have DOM elements and we are testing also the behavior of the component more than only the implementation of JavaScript. So we have libraries for that, but I never work in a project that maybe is made with Node or is completely JavaScript. I always work with HTML also in the components. So it's slightly different at the moment. And for that, we have testing library, and it has a plugin for Vue also. So yeah, you have plugins for everything for Jest at the moment. Everyone has made any plugin that you need. So just search for it because it will have it.
I feel like it's such a common JavaScript thing, just in general, to say like, oh, if you need some functionality, go search for it. It probably exists out there. Will was adding a little bit of context. For example, if a user is working on a form, do you have a folder for mock entities? Not necessarily a full extension. I don't know if you know how to answer that one a little bit or not.
I didn't understand the question.
Yeah,
maybe because I don't know.
I'm
because
not.
When
Sorry.
Tell me.
No, I was gonna say I'm not quite sure either. Maybe do you want to take a minute just to talk about mocking in general? Because that, like, mocking, in my little experience with testing, like, that's kind of the hardest part sometimes, is to mock the things that you're not working with.
Yeah, that's so true. When I start mocking, I have the problems I told you. First was actions, because I need to mock actions, and obviously there is packages as mocktions that helps you to do that, because obviously to make a library mock is quite complicated.
Yep.
But for example, for the store of Vue with Vuex, I had a little bit of knowledge on what I have to do, but I create like a factory that you can call the store in like the state, the getters, the actions, everything is mock, but it's mock with the same structure as your store. For example, if you have an action, you have just fn with the mock implementation that you should have for that one. And I create a store so you can pass the state that you want to have in that store. So it's like a mock of the Vuex store generic, in a generic way that you can create any store with that. Any mock of the store. Yeah. But I only work on mocks that bigger in Vuex, because the other mocks I made was just mock a function, or may just mock from a library that is already mock in the node module. So it gives me the mock itself. Because some libraries have its own mocks inside. So you just need to call just mock and call that library, and it will send you the fake the fake library. The fake.
And that so maybe for people who are not familiar with the concept of mocks, what happens is, we talked about the idea of kind of like unit testing and maybe getting into functional programming and pure functions and that sort of stuff. But often you end up calling a function, and that function has to call something else. Maybe it makes an API request or something like that, whatever. And so the mocking here is basically saying, like, when I test this function that calls something else, I don't need to test that other thing is doing its job correctly, because that thing should have a test in its own. What I really need to do is test this one function and assume that if this data comes back correctly, or alternatively doesn't, am I handling that appropriately in that function that we test? So you, like, instead of actually calling the real function, like from the function we're testing, instead of calling the real one that will do something, we mock that. And you can do a lot of different types of mocking. This is mocking up a function call. And you can basically just kind of like hard code the result and say, hey, this data is going to come back good. And then say, with that data being good, does this function actually do its job? So mocking helps you really get down to that unit test level, so that we're not messing around with a lot of different dependencies and a lot of different functions and other things going on. We're just testing the one little bit that we really care about. And that was a very hard thing for me. I feel like we spent just as much time mocking things sometimes as we did actually writing tests. Programmer redeemed a sip. I've got my big water bottle here, so I'll take a sip. And you had a question from Angie. Can Alba tell us a bit about how snapshotting works? And this is something I've heard about. I think I know what it is, but I'm not totally sure. She says she's only familiar with that concept outside of unit tests. So what about snapshot or snapshot tests?
Yeah, I start making snapshots instead of checking the content. When I start unit testing, I change it completely after that. But when you start making a snapshot, you are, for example, making a screenshot of the component, but more than a screenshot is the code that is generated when you are mounting the component of view, for example.
Like
so you
the
have
actual
everything
DOM code?
Yeah, how it is rendered.
Okay.
Yeah, you have a screenshot of the code that is made with the mocks and properties and data that you fill in the mount process. But what happens when you are making a snapshot of something that is expecting data and the DOM, and you have a DOM that will be changing because someone wants to change a class because you have utility classes in your component and you want to change a class. The next time you will run it, it will fail because it's not the same HTML and you don't break anything. So it's a false truthy. So for components, it's slightly complicated to test it with snapshots.
Okay.
I think maybe for a functional a class or whatever that you didn't touch, and if you touch it, it's because you want to refactor it, and then you need to change the test and make it work. It's okay. But for a component, it's complicated because we always change our HTML. I don't know why, but it's never finished.
Okay. And that was it's interesting from like your actual experience to say that like it's not as simple as I think the idea is supposed to be. Like the idea is you write some code, if you Angular, React, whatever, like if you have this variable, then that thing should be rendered onto the page here, right? And that makes sense. Like that should be consistent. And so if the actual DOM code changes, the output of that changes for some reason, you want to know. But I guess like you're saying, you could get into a situation where that stuff changes all the time, which kind of makes the snapshot stuff maybe not so valuable. And maybe what would happen is if you're kind of experimenting with where things should go, once you settle in on like, all right, we're pretty sure that thing's going to be there for a long time, then maybe a snapshot test makes sense so that it's like, you're not having to update that test all the time. Yeah. Colby turned on the Christmas lights. I don't know if people can see these in the background. I have a blast with these, this Twitch bot that I've got. I think it's so cool. Shout out to Brad for doing the Hue SDK. Shout out to Brad also. We haven't seen this yet. We'll see this in a minute. Shout out to Brad for doing the code to be able to change themes in VS Code. We'll see that in a second. And shout out to everybody else that's been a part of this and has helped me kind of build out this bot, which has been a ton of fun. Let's see. I think what I would like to do is I want to pivot a little bit and we'll write a little bit of hands-on code. And I didn't run this by you early enough, but this is just testing JavaScript, not actually testing the DOM. And I've got this, I'm gonna switch over. I've got this oh no, wait, first of all, whoa. Someone changed the theme and it ended on the hot dog theme, which this is part of the fun. It's pretty bad. This one's not fun. So somebody in the chat, redeem a change of the theme to not be hot dog. Yeah, Shorty was like, this is fun. And then, no, it's not fun. Thank you. I think that was, oh no, okay, hold on. It cycles through a few. Cool. All right. So we're back in business with Code Stacker's theme. Thank you, Brad. So, so what I was going to say is I built this, this JWT Twitch bot. And what it is if I want to do a giveaway, for example, inside of Twitch, they actually have some stuff in Streamlabs that you can do for this. But I wanted to build my own bot, and I wrote this code like 6 months ago and almost haven't looked at it. And I felt like it would probably be a good example of something that, one, I want to start using again. And then two, it's just kind of, I think, a good example of a few different simple tests that we could run. So what I'm actually going to do is, as part of the MDE program, the Media Developer Expert program that's put on by Cloudinary, they have supported doing a giveaway for, I will confirm this, but I think it's a 90-day subscription to, or maybe 6 months. I have to verify that. Subscription to Frontend Masters. So if people have used Frontend Masters or heard of Frontend Masters, that's actually kind of a big deal. They've got like amazing content of all different areas, including testing stuff. So you can go find a lot of cool stuff in there. So I'm going to do a giveaway for that in this stream. But before we do that, we'll write some tests, just some basic Jest JavaScript tests, and be able to test out a little bit of this code before we do that. So stick around for a chance to enter to win with the Twitch bot. So Alba, if I am getting started with Jest, I've got this is a JavaScript project. So I assume the first step would be to actually install Jest. Of
course. in dev, save dev. Yeah.
Save dev, and then just Jest. Tech Gadget was trying to change the theme to a hot dog theme, and it did not. It stayed on a much more pleasant theme, which is good. Hot dog is the terrible red one.
Do you prefer NPM than Yarn?
Yeah, I've always done. I just never had a reason to do Yarn, so I just never did. I just stuck with NPM, and I know, like early on, there were a few things that Yarn did that NPM didn't. I think like the set, instead of having to type -save, like Yarn did it by default before NPM did. So that was one of the things that people enjoyed. But I would love to hear your perspective. If you are a Yarn fan, why Yarn over NPM?
Well, I started using Yarn because Nax was promoting it.
Okay.
And Debbie was promoting it. So I tried it, and yeah, I tried, and it was so fast. And I didn't understand why, because I don't know how it is made in the background, but it's really fast.
Okay.
And I can have my project mounted. It's like, I don't understand how, but obviously
it's magic.
They have also, for me, it's better to understand when you add a package, because Yarn is adding instead of install. And I don't know why, when I started using it, was for me easier to remind the stuff that I was doing. And I don't know. I started using it, and I never stopped.
Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. And you've got a couple of fans, I think, of Yarn as well. Tech Gadget is a Yarn fan, as well as you, as we said. Keith is a Yarn fan, and then Will Parr is saying that Lerna is a big win for Yarn. I've heard of Lerna. I have no idea what Lerna is. Do you know what Lerna is?
Lerna. For me, it sounds familiar.
Yeah, I'm maybe will give us a note in here of what Lerna is. I have no idea. You share.
Okay, I see
you got it? Okay.
the icon. I don't know what is the name of that mythologic animal, but I know.
Yeah. Oh, let me look it up. Now I'm kind of curious. Do you know the name in Spanish?
No.
Okay.
No.
Does anyone know what the name of the animal is? Hydra?
Yeah, I don't remember this animal.
I think that's what it is. Let's see. So this is useful for mono repos. Again, something I have very little to almost no experience. Oh, cool. So this is kind of like similar to like the dog in Harry Potter. Are you a Harry Potter fan at all? No. Okay. So they have a three-headed dog, which is its own kind of mythological thing. But Hydra, so Cerberus is the dog, and then people are agreeing Hydra is the like multi-headed dragon thing. Yeah. So Lerna useful for mono repos, stuff that I have no experience in, but could definitely use a little tutorial in, I think.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. So I've got open. Can I move this little thing to? You can see that on stream, which I don't like. Can I move this to another? I don't want y'all to see the zoom window. I'm gonna drag it over. There we go. Now you won't see it. So so I've got this class. This is a giveaway class. Inside of the constructor, you tell it like, hey, how many winners are we gonna have? and then you pass it a client, which is the Twitch client. And then you can use that client to respond back to things in the chat. So you can send messages back to the chat. So as we maybe start the giveaway, it will send a message back that says, hey, the giveaway has started. If you want to enter, run the enter command. Just so we can see this really quickly. I'm going to run it and then kill it. We're not ready to do the actual giveaway yet, but I'm going to run this really quickly. And then what will happen is if I do in the chat, start giveaway, only admins are allowed to do this, but I can start the giveaway. It sent that message and gee, wow, people were ready to enter really quickly. So Tech Gadget, Root Shelled, both entered. And what happens at the end of this, again, this is not for the actual giveaway, just to show you, is I can run the stop giveaway command, and that should generate a JSON web token for each one of those people. You can go and decode that token in JWT IO, created by Auth0, and then it will tell you whether or not you are a winner, and then you verify that thing by sending that token back with the winner command, and it will validate whether or not you are actually a winner. Anyway, that's how it works. And let's actually start with a little bit of testing. So with Jest, does it automatically look for files that have the .test.js extension? Is that how it picks up which files to run?
And .spec.js, both.
So spec and test. Which one do you
I
use?
use the spec.
Okay.
Normally, I don't know why. I start with that and I follow with that.
Works for me. I'm going to create a folder called test. Inside of here, we'll do the giveaway spec TS. Notice VS Code here is picking up on that spec TS and giving us a little. Oh, actually, this should not be TS. I'm not doing TypeScript.
I was asking why TS the spec, but not the classes. Like
I'm getting ahead of myself, I think. So when we have tests installed, it looks like from the documentation we don't actually have to import Jest in here. We just write a test and it should work.
Yeah, but you need first to add the script in the package.json, so we have the possibility to run the test.
Okay. So,
okay, test is echo, so perfect. And now you can have it.
Let's actually update this.
You can add Jest.
Yeah. Do I have to?
Jest.
So just Jest. Okay, so just Jest.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Got it. All right. So test command runs Jest. Cool. Got it. A little rhyme there. And then to write our first test, we literally do this. And I have some snippets in here. I didn't know this from the ES7 React Redux GraphQL React Native snippets. It has some snippets in here. Does this look like the right
I like it.
format for this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So is perfect because then it's behavior-driven development.
Cool.
So do that.
Yeah.
But first we need to import the class that we are going to test.
Yeah. So let's do.
Yes, because okay. You use your car.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, inside of Node. I talked about this with Brad Garapi and some people in Discord. So the only way you can use the import syntax in Node is if you rename the files to like MS or something, that specific extension.
Okay.
Or if you
use
or if you use TypeScript. And I've just never done either one of those things with Node. So I do the require syntax. Yeah.
Okay. But it's okay. And before the test, I used to create the describe section to specify that we are going to test this class giveaway, and you can give it a name, giveaway, for example.
And what this will do is
it will
like group them all together.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Group the test for giveaway in the section that you will see when you run the command. But okay.
I think I broke some of the syntax. There we go. Okay, so this is describe now is saying this is going to be the text that's associated with the group of tests that are inside of this. So we have this that's not completed yet, but in theory, this is a group of tests based on this describe. And the first thing that people do is like should equal 2 when 1 plus 1, right? Like that's the stereotypical thing.
Like
so we can do that really quickly, and this will go inside of here. And with Jest, the way we do this is we call expect, and then we say what are we looking to compare with. So we can say 1 plus 1 in here, just an expression, and we want that to be 2. Is that right? Simple enough. So then we can run npm run test. And I think with yarn, you don't have to type the run command. You could just write yarn test.
Yarn test.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a little
like
bit less. Yeah, nice.
Yeah, because the run is something that was there without no reason.
It's true. I agree. It definitely seems a little wasteful. All right, so we have our very first, my very first passing test, which is really good.
That is not testing nothing.
You're
so
right,
that's the problem of unit testing. You can test nothing and it's okay.
And we didn't really have a conversation about like writing good tests, because you could write lots of tests that may not mean anything. So your tests really only mean as much as they are good is really what it comes down to. I think Tech Gadget maybe started this is doing a question. I've never actually seen this, a question to the chat of predicting whether or not I will enjoy Jest. Is not available to viewers in your region. Oh, that sucks. I didn't know that would be a regional thing. But I think what he's trying to do is give kind of a poll type thing to let people vote yes or no to see whether or not I will enjoy this testing stuff, which so far I am, but I've only written a useless test. So, so maybe one of the things I had in mind was when I create a giveaway. So when I call the giveaway constructor, my computer is slowing down now with too much going on. Let's see if it'll pick back up. So when I call the constructor for giveaway, one of the most important things is that it initializes an accepting entries property as false. So I was thinking I could create a new giveaway and then check that it's accepting entries is actually set to false. So say something like should set accepting entries to false in giveaway constructor.
When giveaway is called or instance, but it's okay.
That's okay. No, I'm all for it if you would change the wording. So should set accepting entries to false when giveaway constructor is called.
Yeah.
Is that how? So yeah, what would you change anything about that?
No, I think it's okay. But when you call that's it. Create a new instance, I will say, but it's okay. It's okay.
When creating a new instance of giveaway, like that. Cool. And then we'll have our function in here, and I'll call that. So I'll call const give away, call the constructor, capital giveaway, pass in 1 for the number of winners, and then the client, in this case, this is an interesting thing with testing, is the client is supposed to be the actual Twitch client. In testing, I don't really need that, and I don't really want it. So I could not pass anything if I wanted to. My code will still work because it's not doing any validation, which maybe long-term it should, but it's just setting client to whatever you pass in. But since we're not going to use any of the client functionality, we can just pass this in, and we can pass in null if we want to for the client. It doesn't really matter. And then we'll do our expect. We'll take our giveaway and look at the accepting entries property. And there is, I think we could do to be and do false, but there's also a to be falsy.
Yeah.
Which one of those would you use for checking false?
I used to use to be and then false, because to be truthy and to be falsy, for me, has a little bit problems when I'm working with DOM elements.
Okay.
But I pretty sure that it's related to that this not the same false, because sometimes it's giving me another not false on the final or whatever, and you need to check pretty well if is the correct false you want. Yeah.
Okay. And that, so I think part of that gets into, I get to teach about this stuff a lot, get into how equality is done in JavaScript. And if you have primitives like strings and numbers, for example, those things, when you do a comparison between the two, are just looking at the values associated with them. If you do something more complex, if you have an object or an array and you check equality, it's actually checking the pointers to the memory address where that stuff is stored. And this is pretty tough for people that are new to programming, because it's in other languages as well, and then specifically in JavaScript. So I think I saw this earlier in Jest. There's the to be, which is looking that is looking at if you're expecting an object to be another object, it's looking at the pointer in memory. If you just want to compare the values with a deep value comparison, then you have the equals function that you could call in here. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
To equal. Yeah.
Cool. See, I'm learning. Learn so much. All right.
But you
so
already know it.
part of that I knew, part of it I learned in terms of translating that to the testing stuff. So, okay. So this test, that looks good to me. That's all I want to do is just check that property, and I can run my tests again and hopefully see positive stuff. Cool. So that seems like it works. Now the next thing I would do is, let's write another one. The only other thing I want to do, and this is tricky for me, so I have a question for how we can solve this. But let's test, should set accepting entries to true when calling, what, I don't even know what the function is called. Let's look in. Start accepting entries. Start accepting entries. And I'm thinking you can probably give me a solution to this. I'm going to end up duplicating this code. I'm assuming there's some sort of, is there like a before in Jest where I can do initialization before each test?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, we have tear down and set up, so we can create if you want.
Okay.
Before each, but before every test. So
or
just delete the first one because.
Yep. Or yeah, we can remove this one for now.
Yeah.
So what's the name of that thing?
Before each.
Before each, makes sense. And do we
and
have to
arrow function?
Okay.
Also.
Like that?
Yeah.
Okay. And then what this is going to allow me to do is basically copy this code up here and then get rid of it in both places. And this giveaway should still be accessible inside of individual tests.
So you need a let outside the before each. Yeah. A let constant.
Oh, gotcha.
No constant let.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let giveaway.
Let variable.
So we make that by defining it outside of the before each. It means it's going to be available in everything. Will Parr caught on to that really fast, so he was saying it needs to go before the describe or the individual test, and then we do this. So now we say for that giveaway variable inside of the before each test, we're going to actually initialize that to a new instance of the giveaway object. Okay, sweet. So then this code should still run up here. And what I want to do is I want to copy this test, but then check that it's true after start accepting entries. Now, I don't know what the best solution to this is, but, or go ahead. Were you going to say something?
Well, if you are using the client that you have in your giveaway, we need to mock it.
Yep. And what would be the best way to do that?
well, we can see what the client is doing, because I see that it's calling a function called say, a method say. So we can just, because the client is making this, is calling say to do what?
It's sending a message back to chat. But
there is no, it's doing nothing. Okay, so the client should be an object with say that is Jest FN.
Cool.
So we can create, a
So
constant.
do like a mock client, and it's an object with a say function, and then that say function will just
Jest FN.
Huh? Oh, it has, okay.
Jest FN. Yeah, because it's a real function, the spec would fail.
Oh, okay. Is it lowercase just FN?
Dot
like
FN. Jest dot FN and parentheses.
Arrow function?
No.
Or no,
that's it. That's it.
Just
when you don't need a result, because if you need a result, you need to mock the implementation and make a lot of stuff.
So in this case, all we're saying is like, hey, this is gonna be a function. It doesn't need to do anything. Just pretend like this is a function. Let it get called. Nothing needs to happen. And then we'll still be able to test that this thing is true after that. Okay, very cool. And that will change one thing. Instead of passing in null, we'll need to pass in our mock client. So for our giveaway, it will have the mock client. And then we will, inside of here, call giveaway start accepting, where's my IntelliSense? Entries, like this. And then that should flip the thing to true. Wilpar has a question or comment. You can mock the implementation to console log that you're calling your mock, maybe. So could, does this function, can it take an arrow function inside to just say like, here's what we want it to do?
Usually I add a dot after the parentheses and I put mock implementation, and then the arrow function. Yeah, I think it's yeah, you can make mock implementation or without the plural. But there is also one that is called mock return value.
Oh, if you actually need
in this case
something to come back.
Yeah.
Okay, but we don't need to actually return anything.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. All right. Let's save that. I don't need this comment anymore. And I'm like definitely going to build out on these. And you can, Will is saying that you can mock API call so easily. That's awesome. Yeah, with the return. So you can have it be a mock function, specify what the return is, and simulate calling the API. You could also, if you needed to, you could also like simulate time in there. Like instead of making a real request, you mock the request and return something. And I imagine you could also put a delay in there to like simulate taking time to make an API call.
Yeah, that's true.
Very cool.
I do that with the Vuex store with the actions, because the actions make an API call, so I always get the response. Okay,
gotcha. Yeah, testing is a cool thing for me. Something I have not a whole lot of experience with. So let's
when you have a mess period, you don't like it.
Then you need it, yeah.
Yeah.
You need it that much more. So hopefully those tests pass. Sweet. So it ran one test suite. I'm assuming the test suite is the describe, so that's the giveaway class. And then the two individual tests in here both passed. And it even shows me, yeah, so it shows me some of the logs and stuff and the saying stuff. So you see that mock function was actually called and it ran. Lockheed.
I'm so happy that it ran.
Yeah.
I was afraid.
It would have been like a small syntax thing if something went wrong. But yes, we did it. Lockheed is asking in the chat, you can mock return data from JSON and then test the return data match the test. I'm not sure I'm quite following exactly what that is, but you can mock up an API or a HTTP request with JSON and then use that JSON however you want in your testing. Cool. That was like, I didn't want to do too much. I just wanted to do like a really quick example, especially instead of just doing like an example of like, here's how you do the test with an add function. I wanted to incorporate it in something that I actually have that will help me. So I will add some more tests on this later on. But this worked out really well.
But I think that we can do a slightly improvement on what we see when we run the command.
Okay.
If you go to the package.json, we can add configuration for Jest, or just add a Jest config.js file in your root, in the root of the project.
All right.
Jest.config. No, Jest.config.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I don't know why. Yeah.
And VS Code is giving me the icons again, so you see the little Jest icon there. Okay.
That's so cool. I want this theme.
I think this extension is the VS Code icons extension, so you can add it and it'll give you those. Yeah.
Okay, I will do it. And then you can module export and then open an object, so we can set up here the coverage variable to true.
That.
And you need the coverage paths. Coverage paths or directory. Yeah, you need to put coverage directory, and then add the folder of
directory
of the files itself. Yeah.
And this is going to be a folder where it's going to output the coverage information. Is that right?
Oh yes, but I mess up.
Okay.
It's collect coverage to true and coverage collect coverage. Yeah, yes.
Collect coverage. So this is saying we do want to collect that information, which is good. And then the next one was coverage.
No, but this
sorry.
Collect coverage. Yeah, because I'm making a mess with the words. Collect coverage. The first one is not
I'm
there.
sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're saying this is an object. Is that right?
No. No, you can delete the object. Collect coverage is a variable.
Okay. So no coverage.
No coverage.
Gotcha.
Just collect coverage.
Okay.
But you put only cover.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, for that I was
Collect covers.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll put it in the chat too. Thank you, Will. Collect coverage is true, which says that it will. I'm assuming that's saying that it will say that information to some files, and then we want to tell it where to put those files.
The collect coverage is showing you what lines of code of your giveaway class is test, and what should be test. So you can take a look on what you need to test in that class. Yeah, and also collect coverage from. Yeah, and here we can place an array with the root of the project or one we want to test. So we are testing giveaway. If giveaway is in the root of the folder, so that's it. Yeah. So yeah, we don't need anything because it's in the whole project. Okay, so just empty array. And then run the command again. So we can, after saving, so we can see if it shows the coverage of the file we are testing. All right, let's run again. I'm gonna make this a little bit. I have to get a more powerful computer for my streams in the future. Let's run it again and we'll see if we get, cool. So it looks like this part here. Nice. And it's showing me for the token generator, I'm not doing anything. For the giveaway, I'm doing 33% of functions. So probably 1 out of 3 functions. And then statements is 27%. Uncovered, it even tells you which lines are uncovered. So which ones we didn't do at all. So 23 through 27. Very nice. Okay. And this would, like whatever your targets end up being, you would go back and write tests to get up to a certain coverage percentage. Will is asking to you, do you use test coverage on your builds for PRs to the develop branch? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, always. Because I have a plugin that always tell me the coverage percentage I have, and I have a minimum of 70%. Mm-hmm. to build. Yeah, sometimes it's kind of hard to reach that goal.
Yeah.
And it's like we skip it or or take care of it. Like, yeah, but you should test your projects because sometimes it depends more people on you, not only
not just the stuff you did, but also stuff that other people did. Cool. Will is saying 70 sounds like a good number. That's awesome info. Good. So we, let's see, had an existing project, installed Jest, created a test directory with a spec file inside of it. We wrote a test, wrote another test, and then looked at like we could refactor this into a before each. We had those grouped inside of a describe. So we have like that set or that suite of tests, which had 2 in them, ran them. Then we did some configuration. I'm sure there's lots more things that you could configure to show the percentages in here. The one other thing I'm interested in, is there a watch flag that will have it like constantly looking at your test files, and if they change, it will run them again?
Yeah, it should be. Usually I use the Vue CLI service, so it has already the watch set up, but it should be in Jest. Yeah, it's the same watch.
It may not have worked.
Yeah, this one
for me because.
But you need to run first the npm run test.
Does it
twice, and then another twice. You need to make it twice. Like this symbol.
The dash? Oh,
the dash.
So
that's watch. Yeah.
Oh, so is that saying like these are parameters I want to pass into the Jest command? Gotcha. The like there you go. The movement of the parameters into that command. Okay, there it is. Yeah.
I
Jest
have a
with
lot of
watch.
problems with that because I didn't understand why the 2 dashes were there, and then I understand. Okay. Okay.
Yep. So that is running, and then if I come back and I just do a save, I didn't change anything, but if I do a save, it re-triggers all those tests. Cool. Love it. Somebody's Will is asking about a spy on. I think I'm kind of out of time, I think. So I don't think I'll have time to dig into that more, but maybe an intermediate testing one down the line may be a good idea, is to do a little bit more. If you would be interested in doing that, we can talk about that later on. But all of that said, before we wrap up, let's go ahead and actually run the giveaway. I hope that this works. I think that I fixed the bugs that I've had in the past. Hopefully it works. But again, what it is a subscription to Frontend Masters from Cloudinary and their MDE, their Media Developer Expert program, which is pretty amazing. So what I'm going to do for everybody that's here, if you've been lurking, you might want to come and check your computer and participate now. But I'm going to start the giveaway. That will open this up to accept entries. So now everyone can run an enter command. So it'll be !enter. And I'll give that a few minutes for people to enter. And I don't have a great way to facilitate getting the tokens to you. So that it will just like blast them all out. When we stop the giveaway, it will blast them all out. Not the best thing to do, but I don't have a better solution right now. So like I said, I'll give a few more minutes. I see a few people I haven't actually heard from in the chat, Midwest Dev and Viking Violinist. That's a cool name. Welcome and thanks for hanging out. But I'll give a little bit more time to enter, and then we'll do a winner. Alba, as we wrap up, any specific links or things that you would like to share? Maybe your website again. I can throw that back in the chat.
Yeah, dontrouse.com.
Cool. Let me pick that. Let me grab that link. There we go. Steven Creates is gifting a sub to Lockheed. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I'm sure Lockheed appreciates that as well. But thank you. And there's the Don Trouse link in the chat. So if you want to check out her website, please do. I've looked at it recently and it is very nice. It's a very nice website. If anyone out there is still interested in participating, you've got another, let's call it 30 seconds or so. So anybody out there that's lurking, come onto your keyboard, put your fingers on your keypad on your phone, wherever you're watching from, run the enter command, and then I will stop it in about, I said 30 seconds, like 15 seconds ago. So maybe 15 seconds now. I need like a countdown thing inside of Twitch or inside of my bot, like a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 countdown. I think that would be fun. Might add that. Anyway, all right. So let's. Looks like we've given plenty of time. Let's do a stop the giveaway. What this will do, and again, this is not perfect, so I apologize. But what you'll need to do is you will need to scroll up maybe a little bit to find the token that came after your name. This is a JSON web token, a JWT. It has 3 parts. That's why you'll see 1 part, period, 2nd part, period, 3rd part. And what you'll do is you'll take that token and enter it into JWT.io. So let me actually open up. Do I have a browser open here? Yeah, I've got JWT.io open here. What I'm going to do is just to kind of show you how this works. I'm going to copy Viking Violinist token. I'm going to paste it inside of JWT.io. And actually, it says that Viking is the winner. I just chose that at random. I didn't actually know that that would be the case. And maybe I shouldn't have done that before other people have tested. But just to be sure, you can copy your token, put it into JWT.io, and then see that information hopefully looks right, or see whether or not you won based on that information, the winner property in there. And so Viking Violinist, if you could do one favor, you will need to run the winner command. So it'll be !winner space, and then paste in that token again. What my bot will do is it will actually validate that token to make sure that people didn't hack it or make up a token and send in a token that didn't belong to them. So I'll give you a second. It'll be the winner command. So !winner space, and then copy back in your token. And it should do the validation and verify you as a winner. I don't know why. Twitch just gave me, Lockheed sent a message where saying congrats, and there was space in there, and Twitch like blocked it for a second because it said rats in there, which is kind of funny. Sweet. I think that worked. So Viking Violinist got the token that has winner. Viking Violinist, if you can send me a message separately, you can send me a DM in Twitter, or actually Twitter's probably best because I don't pay as much attention to the whispers here, but I will try to look. So send me a message in Twitter and I will get you hooked up with that. The last thing is just to kind of show you what would happen, hopefully, is I'm going to copy someone else's token. I'm going to copy this token in here. And let's see. I'm going to test it. This one should say that this token failed. And it also says that I must have stolen someone else's token. So not only does it know that it's a valid token, it also knows if you copied someone else's token because it compares the username in the token with the user who actually submitted it into chat. I'm pretty proud about this. And it looks like it's worked out pretty well. So I think that I have all my bases covered. Cool. All right, I'm going to switch over, not to just me. Oh, I'm sorry. Alba, you maybe didn't see, but I kicked you out for a second and I just showed my face instead of both of us, but we're back now. No, you're good. Worry. You're good. It was, I just clicked the wrong button when I transitioned.
Everything is surprise.
Yeah. Anything you'd like to share before we wrap up? Got your link to your website in the chat. Anything else you want to share with people that are here before we wrap up?
Well, maybe just my Twitter, because there I promote every post or article or whatever I upload to my website. So so we can keep in touch there. It's also down to us as my website.
Yeah, perfect. Got your Twitter link in there. Definitely follow Alba on Twitter. And by the way, that was where this connection came from. I don't even remember what the post was that you made, but I was like, huh, that's really interesting. And then I messaged you and I was like, hey, would you like to come on for a stream someday?
Yeah, it was because I made the Figma design for my website.
Yeah, that's right. And that, I feel like that's one of, as odd as COVID and quarantine and stuff is, I feel like I've gotten to meet a lot of people and have some really fun conversations by just reaching out randomly on Twitter and then bringing people on.
Yeah, that's so nice.
Steven Creates was asking about the prize. It is a subscription to Frontend Masters. Actually a pretty big deal. Sponsored by Cloudinary MDE, Media Developer Expert Program. And I can't remember, I need to verify this. It's either 90 days or 6 months, I think, subscription. So I'll need to double check that. But I will follow up with Viking to make sure that they have everything set up to get going and learn some really cool stuff. So I think that's it. Thank you for joining. I think it went really well. I really enjoyed it. And I got to learn a little bit about testing, and maybe you'll have to bug me to make sure that I'm continuing to add more tests and improving my test coverage in the chat, in the Twitch bot going forward. Very cool. All right. Well, one last thank you to everyone who joined and participated. As we get out of here, let me see who is online right now. And I think Clarkio he typically is online at this time. And I'm going to rate us over to Clarkio. He's got an amazing stream, works at Microsoft. Again, we talked about them being such an amazing company. And we're going to rate over to Clarkio. Last question as we do that from Tech Gadget. Did we decide if I enjoyed it? I absolutely enjoyed it. The testing went really well, and I can see how I've got some more tests to add. But it was really quick and easy to set up, especially with a little bit of configuration. So anyway, one last thank you for coming onto the stream. One last thank you for everyone being here. And something just happened about my rate. Oh, it's counting down again. So now I've got 5 extra seconds to kill. All right. And we are off. Thanks everyone for coming, and I'll catch you next time.
Thank you.